Hello and welcome to the Scatterville channel, and today I'm going to show you guys my brand new $1,000 gaming setup guide for 2020. So if you're looking for a cool and unique $1,000 gaming setup that can do all the things like competitive PC gaming, all-in-one streaming, and VR, complete with an elite gaming mouse, simplistic mechanical keyboard, high refresh rate monitor, great value headset, dual speakers, a surprisingly good microphone, and a killer $600 gaming PC that can run all of your favorite PC games at a high frame rate at 1080p, then you've come to the right place. And again, I want this video to serve as a template for a general overview of what I think a really awesome and complete $1,000 gaming setup should be, and you don't need the exact peripherals or components that I have in this setup behind me. Like, you don't need the exact graphics card that I have, you don't need the exact 1080p monitor that I have. A lot of the stuff can be substituted out, but nonetheless, if you did want to check out the exact products that I have here behind me, I will have all of those linked in the description below. But again, this is just a general template that should give you an idea of what's possible for a $1,000 gaming setup. And speaking of setups, if you enjoy those sorts of videos, then yes, those are making a return on this channel, which means if you like them, consider subscribing to the Scatterville channel, because I will be making more of them, and maybe even a dedicated VR setup, since Half-Life Alyx is actually like a really awesome game and I've been playing it a bunch. And also, if you want to make this video more visible to other PC gamers looking for a really dope $1,000 gaming setup, then hit that like button. And if you want to talk about this subject more with other cool PC gamers, then I do have my own Discord server, and you can find all of that in the description below. But first, a word from our sponsor. Now, if you're going to build a gaming setup similar to the scale of what I have here behind me, and you may be glamorized with the hardware and peripherals that you have, just stop and think and maybe consider what sort of software you want to have to protect or have on your PC. And if one of those is a password manager, then I'd highly recommend taking a look at NordPass. NordPass is a password manager that is super quick and easy to set up on your PC, like under 30 seconds quick, where you can have all of your passwords on your browser stored on your PC. And from there on out, there should be pretty much no worries for ever forgetting your old or new passwords. Anyway, some additional cool features are password autofill, very similar to what you'd find in Google Chrome, a built-in manageable password generator, secured payment information if you were to buy anything online, and it can even recognize suspicious websites that might invade your personal privacy. So if you'd like to check out NordPass, I will have their link down in the description below, along with a coupon that can get you 50% off of their subscription, plus an extra month free. So check them out if you want a reliable password manager for a gaming setup like this. So now let's go ahead and get into the setup. And again, I want to mention that all the parts you're about to see here will be linked in the description below if you want to check them out. So let's go ahead and start with the desk, because you need that for a gaming setup. Now, I don't know if those of you watching this video will already have a desk that you want to reuse for a setup like this, or you want to get a brand new one, so I am not factoring it into the price, but I will offer some advice for the different types of desks out there, especially since this is a black and white themed setup. You might want a white desk. And if that's the case, I have two primary options for you. You can just get a basic $50 IKEA Linman desk along with a cable raceway to attach underneath it to manage your cables, and that'll be a very basic, budget-friendly option to go ahead and kick off your desk setup. But if you want something that's more long-term and one that you can actually stand with, then this one here from Autonomous, which is their Smart Desk 2, is another awesome option, because it's a $380 desk that has the tabletop, the legs, and the motor all in one for under $400, which is actually a really awesome deal. And the finish and the look melds in great with this setup. Next up, I want to talk about the mouse, because I actually am a little excited to present this option, because here I've chosen the glorious Model O. So this is the lightest gaming mouse in the world that has RGB lights, and you may be asking, why are we getting a really expensive $70 mouse versus like maybe a Logitech G402 that can do basically the same thing? Well, the primary difference between that really cheap $30 to $40 mouse and this $70 mouse is weight. because the Glorious Model O weighs in at 67 grams, whereas that G402 that looks maybe really appealing on the budget end is 102 grams. And that will make a difference in your gaming. And I can testify for this because I personally used the Glorious Model O for a lot of Halo Master Chief Collection, especially when Halo 1 CE came out. And while I noticed between the difference on that mouse and my G305, which there's about a 20 gram difference in, while there wasn't much difference in terms of the side-to-side movement, the verticality was incredibly better on the Glorious Model O being lighter, which means I can really just shove the mouse up and down a lot easier, which for a game like Halo CE is pretty necessary when the maps can be anywhere in any sort of configuration and could be really vertical. So that extra weight you're going to save, I think, is going to be really awesome for more verticality in your gameplay rather than just side to side. So the Glorious Model O, I think, does a really awesome job for $70, and it looks great with the overall aesthetic of this setup. And for the keyboard, and you're like, man, what is that keyboard? Well, thank you for asking, because it is the G-Skill KM360, and it is my favorite mechanical keyboard on the market. And why is that? Well, it looks great, it's TKL, and it offers Cherry MX Red switches, and it's $50. That is such a crazy deal. Now, yeah, it's not RGB, but let's be real. Even with just white LEDs, it looks cool. And especially in this sort of setup behind me, that being a $50 keyboard is kind of mind-blowing. But anyways, the construction quality on the KM360 is quite banger, because I actually own a KM360 myself on my own personal setup that I've been using since 2019, and it has held up amazingly well for a $50 keyboard. So I highly recommend it, and even in gaming, it's not going to slow you down because it has those Cherry MX Red switches. So it's just an awesome keyboard for the price, and I gotta recommend it, especially if you can get it in a white color like what I have behind me. Now next is the headset, and if you were looking into streaming with the setup, I'd really pay attention during this segment, because not only does this headset sound really good, but its microphone is surprisingly good. So of course, you need a nice sounding gaming headset, and the Fanatic React does deliver on that front, because it does have 50mm drivers, a 20Hz to 40kHz frequency response, and a 23 ohm impedance. But here is the microphone on the Fanatic React. This is a test of the microphone on the Fanatic React headset. My only word of advice is to make sure that the actual microphone is close to your mouth, but not directly in the way of breath, so it doesn't detect any puffs. So I think if you're to be kicking off any sort of content creation career or streaming career, and you want to save a bunch of money and not have to go with like a dedicated microphone that could go up to like $200, along with accessories to connect to your desk setup, then I think the Fanatic React is an excellent choice, especially if you just, again, want a really awesome sounding microphone. And speaking of more audio, I decided to include speakers because, quite frankly, there's times we all don't want to put on a headset and we just want to hear sound coming from our setup, like if we're doing things around our room. So I went ahead and covered that front with the Logitech Z207. So again, these are in white, which is great, and they're $50. And the sound quality, as far as the speaker goes, I'd say are average. The bass is surprisingly good. You are going to feel some bass with these speakers, but the mids and highs I feel are just a little bit muted. Like they could be more clear, but I'm not complaining since you can find these for as low as $40 on Amazon. Right now they're $50, but they look, again, great with the setup. And another added feature that I like is that they connect over Bluetooth, so they can connect to your phone if you don't want to turn on your PC and listen to music. And finishing up with peripherals in this setup here, for the monitor, I have the Pixio PXC273. So this has all the mainstays of a typical high-end 1080p gaming monitor, like a 144Hz refresh rate, 1 millisecond response time, 27-inch display, 1080p resolution, and it has AMD FreeSync, all for under $200. And I think it's going to sync really well with this setup because, again, with the PC that we have here behind me, it's going to average about 144 frames per second on games, as long as you tweak the game settings correctly, which will take advantage of the 144Hz refresh rate of the Pixio monitor. And combine that with the Glorious Model O and how accurate it is, you are going to be quite unkillable in first-person shooter games, or for that matter, any game you choose on this PC. And then finally, for the PC here behind me, I have my unreleased $600 gaming PC build that will soon release as soon as the whole current human malware issue that is spreading all over the world and game ending a lot of people is resolved, because at the moment, Amazon warehouses aren't the most reliable, especially for PC gaming parts. So I'll include the parts list for it in the description below for those of you who want to build it. But for those of you watching this video and you still want to anticipate what the specs are, I'll mention that it's primarily using a 1600 AF and a GTX 1660 Super graphics card, which, if you noticed, that's an NVIDIA graphics card, which means we can use the NVEC encoder to stream from the PC of this setup. And again, it has 16 gigabytes of RAM and a 500 gigabyte SSD, all in a $600 package that is also white and black, which is going to fit great again with this black and white setup. If you were curious about the gaming and streaming performance of the setup behind me, you'll be pleased to know that as far as esports gamings go, for like Fortnite and Counter-Strike Global Offensive, you will get about 144 frames per second average on those games given custom settings, which will take advantage again of that 144 Hz refresh rate on the monitor. But for more higher end games like Doom Eternal or Half-Life VR, you will get about 60 frames per second, which is what you want for a more higher end game that doesn't have to be at 144 frames per second to take care of the high refresh rate of this monitor. You don't have to do that, so it can do all sorts of gaming on it for a $600 PC. And for streaming, it can do the same thing as well. You can game and stream from this PC all at once thanks to the GTX 1660 Super and its NVEC encoder, which will allow you to stream at the high preset in OBS, which allowed me to play Fortnite at 144 frames per second on my PC, but then stream at 60 frames per second through OBS to Twitch. And again, as you just saw, it can do VR. It's running Half-Life Alyx VR. Like, come on, that should be enough of an indicator that this PC and the whole setup behind me here can do VR. Anyways, that is it for my $1,000 gaming setup for 2020. And if you enjoy setup videos, again, consider subscribing to the Scatterable channel. And if you want to become more involved with what I do follow me on Twitter and Instagram, because I'm constantly posting updates to those social medias, which you can totally check out and follow me on. So I'll have all of that linked in the description below. And again, thank you so much for watching. And this is the Scatterable channel signing out.